Yes. Welcome, everyone, to A Mexican and a Redneck Father the World. We are your host and surrogate fathers, Juan and Ben. Today we'll be discussing changing your paradigm of fatherhood and children.
Ooh, this is going to be a big one, Ben.
A big one.
So, as you know, I'm a dad. You're a dad,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're both dads. And we've been doing this podcast, for about a couple of months now?
Yes, sir.
So, one big thing that I really want to talk about in this podcast is just kind of like how we view fatherhood and our children. And I've been just going through this moment, Ben, of realizing, man, fatherhood is not something that you just kind of like fall into, but it's something that you grow into. And then when I'm talking about changing your paradigm shift, it's like how you view things. What do you view it as? Like, society gives you this image of being a father as like this bumbling buffoon who drinks a lot. It's,
you go to your job, you come
job.
home, have your beer in your recliner, watch your shows, and you're like, oh, it's time for dinner. Oh, okay. How was school, kids? Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and that's the paradigm that the world wants to portray on men.
Yes.
And then children are these little nuisances. They're always getting in your way. They're yelling. They're disobedient. They're, disrespectful.
And then you're like, why don't you go play with your toys? You're driving me crazy.
Right.
Which we have an episode about toys.
Yes.
Throwing it back.
Great
it's
show.
Called Toys.
Yes.
Yes.
So, and it really got me thinking this in the last couple of weeks. I've really been thinking about like, what is it of being a father and changing the paradigm shift as far as like, we are protectors. We are warriors for our family. We are that strong pillar. When everything is going down, when everything is falling apart, you need to be that strong pillar that holds everything together. Your children, they're not nuisances, but they're divine creations filled with infinite potential. And I asked this question to my wife. I was like, if you knew for a fact, if you can time travel into the future and you saw our son as the next president of the United States, how would that change the way you're raising him today?
Oh yeah,
it's like how do we view our kids? Do we view them as these weak, helpless things and like, oh, you need me to control you and tell you how to do, or do you see them as this child filled with infinite potential?
This is good. I'm gonna bring this down to a redneck level.
Okay.
For people who may think a little more like me, a little less like your highly evolved species and kind.
I went. This is beyond Mexico.
Oh, this is big though. But like this. But like, has anyone ever taken on a project in their lives? Any project whatsoever, work, school, a home project, hobby, whatever, and thought, well, this is just a helpless thing that I'm going to have to take care of, and then set it free. It's like, no, you take on a project because you see its infinite potential. You see how much it can, or maybe not infinite potential. Like if you build a deck, eventually the deck's going to rot and fall apart. But, no one went out to get their college degree and said, well, this will only do so much. I'll just nurse it along. I'll get my degree and then I'll start my career. It's like, no, your career starts when you're going to get that degree or that skill set. And it's just the beginning of it. And you're going to grow with that degree or with that skill set or whatever. But, that's you take on this project of being a father and you're like, okay, I'm not just going to be a father. And then at 18, that's it. Cutting them free. It's like, nah. 18's not like this magic number where you get to stop being a dad. Ask any older father where they're in their 80s and their kids in their 60s or whatever situation may be. It's like, you're a dad always. That's always your baby. That's always your kid. I'll pick my 8-year-old up and I'll cuddle her. I'll be like, you're my little baby. And she still loves it, But it just is. It is. That's, it's your child.
Well, it's funny. You bring up that topic as far as like, your child, you don't stop being a dad when your child turns 18, because in our country, America, the best country in the world so far, there's this stigma. There's this something that's been taught like, hey, at 18 years old, you're a grown person, you're able to vote, and then whatever, you're on your own. you know?
Yeah.
And it's funny, like me and my wife have actually had arguments like, well, what if they need help? What if they need this? What, like, no. 18, they're out of the house. And it's like, but even going through this process, it's changing my paradigm shift as like what it is to be a good father. You know, yeah, at the 18, a child should be equipped and ready enough to be able to handle the world, but you're still there as backup. You're not the main support. But if they have a question, they have a need, they need support, you're there to support them and help them out. You're not going to coddle them. You don't want to coddle them because I think that's one of the big problems that we have in our nation. Too many people have been coddled.
Yeah.
And then going back to the child, when a child is first born, there's an infinite potential. It's like, man, you don't know what that child is going to be, what's going to do, what his potential is going to be. But as he starts to grow up and develop, you start to see traits. It's like, oh, man, he's really good with math. Oh, man, he really likes to play outdoors. And you're supposed to encourage that, develop that.
Yeah, absolutely.
As a good coach. You know, if you're developing a team, you know, you don't put your fastest runner to be an defense guy. You know, you put the big guys up front. The guys are going to be like, they're going to be the wall. They're going to stop it.
Is that what the offense is? Is the guys lined up on the line?
I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know.
I've always wondered when someone says, "All right, we need our offense, our front line." You know,
that's
like, what does that mean?
That's my vast knowledge of football and sports. I'm not really a big sports guy, but I think
for the sake of this conversation, the guys on the line.
Yes.
Okay,
all I know is
sorry to interrupt.
When I watch football, I see big guys up front because I'm assuming they're big and heavy, so it's hard to get through the big guys. But then the little guys who are thin and really fast are in the back.
Gotcha.
And then there's the guy with the big arms, and he's holding the football, and he throws it really, really far. But then the little guy is supposed to run really, really fast and try to catch it and put it on the other side.
Gotcha.
It's a very interesting sport. You know what's a really good sport? Football. Football, great sport. Makes a lot of sense.
What is the difference?
The guys are faster and thinner.
Because football, or whatever you just said, is soccer, right?
Yeah, if you want to be offensive like that.
Yeah, sure. I want to be offensive because I don't know what you're talking about. No. Okay, so back to what you were saying, though. You wouldn't put the little thin guy up front to stop the hits.
Yeah.
You would put the thin guy where he needs to be, running and catching the ball.
Yeah. You know, and it got me thinking too, like as far as like a lot of times with kids, we try to create something that's not there. You know, you may have a kid, like for instance, myself, I can speak this about myself. I was not athletically inclined as a child. I just wasn't. I'm a big guy, but I'm slow. I'm an awkward runner. It's just, you know, and I tried playing sports, but people just made fun of me because it was like, you run funny. I was like, you know, I can't say what I said, but it was, you know, anyways, it was not nice what I said back to them kids.
Did you just say, I disagree, sir?
I completely disagree, sir, in a respectful way.
Yes, that's how you approach that, boys and girls. I disagree with your criticisms, sir.
And I will not say anything about your beautiful mother.
That's a hard comeback right there.
It's solid.
That's some street talk.
That's street talk. That's what you would call hood talk. Yes.
Yeah.
Because I'm from the streets. But anyways, you know, as a kid, I remember, man, I loved to draw. I loved drawing. I was very artistic. You know, man, I would spend hours, you know, just in my room, just drawing and, you know, and tracing and doing doodles and stuff like that. And my dad would be like, "Oh, that's cool," but it was never really like nurtured.
Sure, not like, hey, let's get you in an art class or something.
Let's develop that skill, you know. And I think as a dad, you need to be able to realize that, like, hey, man, my son is really good at this, or my daughter's really, really good at this. How can I influence that? You know, and that's part of being a dad, too, is like realizing your strengths. Like, you may not be good at influencing that for that child, but you need to be able to find somebody that's going to help influence that child.
Absolutely.
You know, as a dad, our responsibility is not to be the end all to our kids, but to be able to be the answer giver. One of the biggest things that I find myself at this point, Ben, is like when I go to my dad, I don't necessarily want him to give me the answer, but I want him to help me find the answer.
Just give you that perspective and guidance.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So it's, you know, and that's been changing my paradigm shift, because a lot of times, like, man, I got to be this, I got to be that, I got to be that. No, there's just a couple things you got to be good at. You got to be good at realizing like what the potential of your kids are.
Mm-hmm.
You got to know your limits and your potential, and just focus on that. And then find people around you they're going to help you develop that. Like I feel like you've been a really good part in that in my life, is you're bringing that strength where I'm weak, and we're creating this, this almost this synergy where we're both becoming better dads because of the influence that we provide to each other.
I agree with what you just said, but vice versa back to you.
Mm-hmm.
If that made sense.
So, in as far as like one of the big paradigm shifts should be when we're hanging out with other men, it's not a time to bash our families. It's not a time to complain about our families, but it should be a time of iron sharpening iron.
Oh, yeah.
The development process of like, man, hey, what struggles did you go through this week? How can we learn through that? How can we develop? We don't do that, though. As guys, we really don't do that. It's more like, man, let me tell you about my week. It was so hard. Here, give me another beer. And it's, and then kind of
work, and the wife's always nagging me, and I just want to play video games and watch football.
Man, I just want to be, or whatever you want to do.
I gave him a house.
Yeah.
I gave him a house. Isn't that enough? They got food.
I give food and a house, and she wants to talk. Words, man. I'm like, what do I do?
This hypothetical guy we keep quoting is terrible.
Yeah, man, he's a horrible guy.
And he talks really aggressively, apparently. I hate it here. Oh, I'm so grumpy. He's the worst. If you're that guy, just take heed. Yeah, no, I like that. Like, your child has unlimited potential. I think some people see this and they know it going in, but there's a flip side where you got to say, are you going to be that parent that creates that like savant kid where you're constantly pushing them and you're being too aggressive, well, you're good at piano, and you've got that savant child who's 5 years old and they're playing Chopin or Mozart or something, and just they're sitting there playing Winter Winds, absolutely perfect. There's a real name to it, but that's the nickname of the movement. But they're playing it and they're like, oh, this is great. But then they're constantly pushing that kid. And then so by the age of 9, that kid's like burned out and angry. And it's like they saw the potential in their child, but they didn't pull back. Like there is a balance, because you got to see their potential, but then know, hey, they're still a kid. Let them go play in the dirt or trucks or whatever.
Yeah, and even before that, it's like you really have to sit down and analyze your thoughts and like ask yourself the question of like, how do I actually see my kids? This is something I had to do. Like, actually sit down and be like, how do I actually view my kids? If I'm being honest with myself, what is the actual view of my kids? Are they little nuisances in my life? Are they little interruptions in my life? Are they the ones that are preventing me from doing the things that I want to do? Am I actually speaking words of encouragement to them because I truly believe, hey, this is who you are? Or am I trying to speak something and trying to create something that's not really there because I see it because I want it, but my kid's not actually athletic, and I'm trying to encourage, like, oh, you can do it, because here's a harsh reality: you can't do everything you want to do. This notion of like, hey, when you grow up, you can be whatever you want to be. That's a lie. That's a lie. You cannot. I'm sorry. If you're not athletically lifted, you're not going to be, an Olympic athlete. If you're not mathematically inclined, you're not going to be, a top agent in NASA or whatever. Everybody has skills and traits. Everybody has a specific skill set, and we got to be able to focus on that.
Oh,
but
absolutely.
It comes back down to like the paradigm of how do I view my children? How do I view myself? And just being honest with yourself. And if you do have a false paradigm of like how you view yourself, change it. Work on changing that, of changing how, the person that you view in the mirror, how do you actually want to view yourself? Because it starts with that. I think the biggest thing with that, it starts as being a dad. What kind of dad do you want to be? And start establishing those principles in your life.
Oh, yeah. And if you want a real this is a real challenge. I challenge everyone to do this because I do this occasionally. Go to each one of your children individually, if they're old enough to speak, and say, am I a good dad? Just interview your kid. Do you feel like I spend enough time with you? Do you feel like I pay attention to you? Do you like when we go to this place? Start interviewing them. What is your favorite thing to do? And find out what they like. Let them help you. You know, I mean, you can assume whatever you want about yourself and say, "Well, I'm a good dad." Yeah, of course. I play baseball with my kid. Your kid might not like baseball. You know, or I'm a good dad. We go on nature hikes. Your kid might hate walking through the woods. Believe it or not, they might would rather go shopping for clothes or something.
Yeah.
And it's not that they don't like you. They just might not like that activity per se, but they like you enough to spend time with you in spite of that activity that they don't like, because they really do want to be with you. Believe it or not, your children love you and want to be with you.
It may not be in the way that you want to spend time with them, but you know, by having that communication, you can find that good middle ground. It's like, hey, well, I don't like doing this, but you like doing this, and it's like, oh, we both like doing this. Let's do that. Let's do it together. And it's like you bring that synergy of like, it's not you dragging them through life, but it's you guys walking together through life together.
Absolutely.
Well, guys, with that being said, I hope this was helpful, and we just want to thank you for listening to A Mexican and a Redneck Follow the World. We love you, and we're proud of you.